there's constantly talk of toxic leadership in the Air Force. Um, and I feel like those who are not toxic or deemed toxic or perceived as toxic don't get enough love. Um, and I feel like that's a major mistake. Same thing with police and protesters. And like you see this all over the place where you judge everyone by the same standard, meaning you're putting everybody in the same group and saying all people are bad, all people are good. You can't use absolutes like that because at some point you yourself will get grouped into one of those absolutes and it'll be wrong. It'll be wrong. So I feel like leadership in general, you have officers, you have the higher enlisted, superintendents, flight chiefs, what have you. There isn't enough talk of those who are not toxic, those who do their job, those who are generous, who are kind, who go out of their way to show effort on your behalf. The only reason I am in Cannon Air Force Base right now, the only reason I live in Clovis, New Mexico right now, is that my leadership stepped in to help me, to help me. I've told the story recently. It's on this channel about how I messed up my follow-on assignment from Clear Air Force Station. It's a short tour for active duty. So I was supposed to be there for a year, and then I was supposed to be able to choose within some restriction where I could go. I get to list eight, I believe it was eight bases that I wanted to go to anywhere in the world. But I believe there's an exception to short tours. I don't think you can do back-to-back short tours. I could be wrong. I keep hearing mixed messages on that. Anyway, well, the one thing that got me out of DC, which was a whole mistake itself because I kind of miss DC now, and that's a whole nother conversation. God, these tangents, bro. You hear me? These tangents, they're attacking me at all ends because I haven't talked so long. But yeah, messed up my follow one. The one thing that got me out of DC was Worldwide Volunteer. It's on the wish list. You scroll all the way down to the bottom to the W's and you'll see Worldwide Volunteer Short, Worldwide Volunteer Long, Extended Long, etc. And so I put that on my wish list and it got me out of DC and got me Clear Air Force Station. Well, my behind left it on there when it came to my follow on. So when I went to go list my jobs that I wanted to go to, leaving Clear Air Force Station, I put Worldwide Volunteer on there thinking it would get me something exotic. Well, it didn't. It got me Eielson. Eielson Air Force Base is about 120 miles from Clear, still in Alaska. So I was destined to stay in Alaska for another 3 or 4 years based on that ignorance in terms of listing Worldwide Volunteer there. Well, it was my own mistake that got me Eielson. It was my own doing. It was my mistake. I messed it up. Well, with that, two things could have happened. One thing should have happened, but something different happened. I should have ended up going to Eielson for 3 or 4 years because it was my mistake. No one else's. Yes, there was some gray areas in terms of they probably should have, and it's a jump to assume that they should have known that I don't want to go to Eielson. They don't know who I am. They don't know my name. They just saw it. He doesn't care where he goes. He put Worldwide Volunteer. Let's send him down the street. Well, I should have went there. Well, my leadership stepped in, and they listened to my grievances and my willingness. I told them I don't want to go to Eielson. I don't want to. I hate Alaska. I don't want to be here. I'll do my job. I'll do the best I can. And if I end up going to Eielson, I'll do my job. I'll make the best of it. But if there's anything you all can do, I kindly and I ask. I beg of you. I beg of thee. Make a call if you can. If there's anything you can do, get me out of this. And that's exactly what they did. The level of gratitude I have to them, because again, we are so quick to just pull the trigger on this person is toxic. This person is this person shouldn't have did that. They hurt me in this way. They attacked me. They didn't listen. They didn't believe me, that whatever. There's a whole long list of grievances towards people that wrong us. But to the people that actually go out of their way to show effort, and this is multiple people, also including my installation commander, the number one person on this base, installation base, Space Force base. This is the number one guy who put on his plate, who added to his plate and saying, with everything else I have to do on this base and everything I'm responsible for, I'm also going to include Isaiah's screw up and say, what can I do to help him out of this? What can I do to get this out? And this went all the way up the chain in terms of Space Force, getting chiefs involved. Chiefs made phone call on my behalf because of my leadership, my superintendent, my CSS, my personnelist, my installation commander. They all made moves on my behalf to say, can we help this young man? Can we help him out of his screw up? And the fact that I'm sitting here in Clovis, New Mexico, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Shout out to them. I'm not going to name names because I don't do all that. But um, there must be more, talk of those who are working on behalf, those who do care. Because, and trust me, my installation commander, if you looked at him from first impressions, from just a pure observation standpoint, you would not look at him and think he's a caring person. He doesn't exude that. He has my typical face, just kind of blank, and he's very structured, very kind of strict. He reminds me of my father a lot, where he expects results. He doesn't speak very directly in terms of, Isaiah, I want you to do this. He'll just say things out loud. We need to get this accomplished. And if it falls under finance, if it falls under resource advisor, if it falls under my abilities, under my section, he expects you to hear that and do it. That's one of the first things I learned in one of our first RA meetings. He would just be talking. And he would just be, yeah, I think I want to look into getting some ATVs for the base, and we need to look into our TDY budget and see. And he never mentioned my name, never looked at me, never addressed me, but he was talking to me the whole time because it fit under he's that type of leader where it's just, I expect you to do your job. I expect you to be competent, which kind of led into a lot of my other issues as far as my own, disbelief in myself, all that present and all that accounted for, even though he knew I was not a person who was trained in my position, but he showed grace, he showed mercy, he showed patience, and then went out of his way to help me in areas that were my fault. He also allowed me to take leave while I was up there in a 1D position, meaning there was no backup for me. There was no one to do my job when I was gone. He let me take 25 days of leave because he knew how much I hated Alaska, or for whatever reason that he let me go. He let me go to ALS while I was up there. He let me pin on my stripes. Like, again, the person that I thought, this person doesn't seem like a person that I would probably get along with. This person doesn't appear to be someone that I might spend time with after work or, have a drink with. And yet turned out to be the exact opposite. Lesson learned. First impressions matter. Typically, the first 7 seconds you meet somebody, they matter, because that's typically the first thought that hits somebody's mind is, But beyond that, there's reputation. And then what I'm currently speaking to is his lasting impression on my life. Because I could easily right now be in Alaska right now talking about God. I'm stationed in Fairbanks. I live in Fairbanks. Got me an apartment in Fairbanks right now. Got to work on the house, and on Monday, it could be a completely different conversation. But because he stepped in and showed love, and obviously those who assisted, because the installation commander, he's not doing all the hands-on work. He's not making all the phone calls. There's other people that he's delegating to, obviously. So shout out to my supervisor, superintendent. They show love. Sergeant Moses, I'll go and say the name. Sergeant Moses, Colonel Rashid, Sergeant Adams. Those who show love on my behalf, who are giving, sacrifice time, that does not go unnoticed. But yeah, more must be said about those who are not toxic, those who are great leaders, those who kind of influence me to be that same person now. Because that was one thing that they mentioned when I did my feedback on my EPR, was that there was sometimes, even though I perceived myself to be incompetent, that my effort was lacking. Even though I thought I was maxing out, even if the answer was no, we can't buy that. That's not a legal purchase. That's not ethical purchase. We can't, that's not authorized. We can't do that. Even if the answer was no, my effort should have came in and said, I'll find a different way to get this accomplished. I'll find a legal way to get the same thing or something close to it accomplished. That's my answer should have been. A lot of my answers were just, no, we can't do that. Here's a regulation. Can't do it. Here's what I got back from contracting, FMA. This is, we can't do it. And I was just cut and dry with, and that's just the way I communicate. It's hell yes or no. But one thing that Sergeant Moses brought up to me was that your situation, for a perfect example, my situation, where the answer could have been, no, you're going to Allison. You messed it up. You screwed up your follow-on. You're going to Allison. The answer could have been very simple. No, you can't get out of it. You're staying in Alaska for 3 or 4 years. This is the military. You know what you signed up for. You should have consulted personnel. You should have went out of your way to ask more questions, follow-up questions. The answer could have been very simple. But the fact that they went out of their way to find a different way. And again, it came down, this is my only other option. It's not like I had 4 options to choose from, outside of Alaska. I had one other option. It was Cannon. gratefully I accept it. But the fact that they went out of their way to say the answer is no, but we're gonna find a different way. We're gonna make some calls. We're gonna send up the chain. That's the difference between effort and someone who they're doing the job, they're checking the box, but effort is easily noticeable and it leaves an impact because obviously I'm sitting here talking about people who affected my life positively. Those type of things must be addressed.